The history of Westeros is typically presented as a chronicle of physical force. We are taught to look at the kings of winter, men with ice in their veins, wielding massive greatswords to hold the north through sheer strength. In the shadows of the Great Hall, power was often maintained through whispers, carefully measured poisons, and the heavy black cloaks of mourning. These were the she-wolves, the widows, mothers, and grandmothers of House Stark, who managed the survival of their line when the men fell in battle. A succession crisis in an isolated fortress creates a specific kind of danger. When the combatants are grieving mothers fighting for their children's inheritance, the traditional rules of the battlefield no longer apply. Around 212 AC, Sir Duncan the Tall rode into this environment with a simple, honorable objective. He intended to pledge his sword to Lord Baron Stark to help repel the Ironborn Reavers attacking the western coast. By traveling thousands of miles up the King's Road, Dunk moved beyond southern influence and royal protection. He entered a territory where Stark word is law. Upon arrival, Dunk discovered Lord Baron Stark was dying, leaving a massive power vacuum inside Winterfell. Dunk had prepared himself for a war against raiders on a beach. Instead, he found himself trapped in a political deadlock, where his physical strength provided no advantage. This specific crisis is the subject of George R.R. Martin's unwritten masterpiece. He originally intended to publish this story years ago, but the political complexity of the Stark succession grew so dense that the manuscript remains unfinished. To understand why this story is so difficult to resolve, look at how Dunk usually survives. He is a 7-foot-tall brawler who solves problems with his fists or his sword. If a lord is corrupt, Dunk challenges him. If a knight is cruel, he knocks him down. In Winterfell, the social hierarchy renders those skills useless. A low-born hedge knight simply cannot physically strike a high-born widow or challenge a grandmother to a trial by combat. In a war of whispers, Dunk's size only makes him a more visible target. He is a pawn on a board where the players are vastly more experienced in the art of political survival. The most severe threat in the castle isn't Dunk's inability to fight, it's the identity of his young squire, Egg. Egg is Prince Aegon Targaryen, a grandson of the king. He carries the blood of the dragon, traveling secretly to learn how commoners live. If the she-wolves discover who Egg is, he becomes the ultimate political lever. A Stark widow could use a royal prince to demand soldiers from the crown, or force the king to intervene in the succession on her behalf. While the king's hand, Lord Bloodraven, maintains a vast network of spies across the south, his influence fades in the north. The isolation of Winterfell ensures that the crown cannot see what is happening to its own prince. Dunk set out to be a protector, but by bringing Egg to Winterfell, he unknowingly delivered a royal hostage directly into a den of starving wolves. This era shows us that when traditional leadership fails, the women of the Seven Kingdoms often develop the most ruthless survival strategies. They are forced to manage the wreckage of the wars that men start. The vulnerability of the Targaryen prince in the north highlights a recurring problem in Westeros, the ease with which local desperation can compromise the authority of the Iron Throne. This instability reached a breaking point in 233 AC. A series of deaths and failed successions left the royal line in shambles, threatening to pull the entire realm into another civil war. The crisis of 233 AC proved that the traditional laws of male inheritance are fragile. When the direct line is broken, the lords of the realm are forced to look beyond the usual candidates to prevent total collapse. During the Great Council of that year, the lords did something that shocked the realm. They ignored the warriors and the ambitious princes who were expected to claim the throne. They offered absolute power to an elderly man who had given up his name years ago. He was a blind maester living at the Wall, sworn to a life of service and poverty. Why would the most powerful, ruthless lords in the world beg a forgotten monk of the Night's Watch to rule them? And what happens to the stability of the Seven Kingdoms when the man who is legally the rightful king refuses to sit on the throne?